Well, hello and welcome back to Read Becca. I think it's time for a recent reads. I have some time off work this month, and so I am really spending a lot of time reading and generally dividing that reading time between half like sure things that I'm really gonna love and half very probably mediocre things that are just very cozy and mundane. That's what I want out of them. So this is gonna be the cozy mysteries recent reads because I've read a couple of cozy mysteries, and these are proper genre cozy mysteries. What I mean when I say that, cozy mystery is a very defined genre with kind of really specific tropes that fit within it. You're generally going to have an amateur sleuth who has connections to the police but is not in any way directly involved in the real investigation. Usually they can get information out of the police and always remain one step ahead of the police, really. You also have very cozy elements tied in, things like food or animals or coffee, knitting, that kind of stuff. And it's often taking place in a small town as well. Usually has that sort of sense of small town community that gives it a cozy vibe. You also, very importantly, don't have any true sense of threat to your main characters, and generally any violence is going to be off page. So you'll have sleuths show up to almost immediately a murder of someone they don't know. Usually it's no one that we're too emotionally invested in, and that's kind of what keeps a book about murder cozy. So let's start with the first one that I read is a continuing series that I'm now caught up on. So this is book 3 in the Senior Sleuth series, Peg and Rose Play the Ponies by Lauren Berenson. And we have our two senior sleuths, Peg and Rose, who are sisters-in-law, and their relationship has really been growing over this series. I've enjoyed that very much. And this one is really different because they are actually traveling away from home. And they, of course, take Peg's dog. Peg is very involved in the dog show circuit. She's a prominent judge. She has her whole life been very invested in standard poodles and poodle breeding. So her dog, Hope, is along with them. And Rose also is building a relationship with the dog, really, in this volume. Over the course of the series, she didn't understand Peg's connection with dogs, and now she's sort of coming to. But unknown to us through the past books, Peg in fact has a horse that she owns in Kentucky, and so they are traveling to see it because her horse had a baby and it is now a yearling, and it's time for the yearling sales, which are massive. And this is kind of uncovering this whole world of horses that neither of them really knew as in depth as they're getting here. Rose really knows nothing about horses, and so she's a great vehicle for telling the reader about this, like teaching us about the horse world without it being too info dumpy. And so we're learning about that, but we're also getting the depth of the importance in Kentucky culture, I guess. It's kind of like Friday Night Lights in Texas. Here, horses are the big thing, and it's so important and integral as a prominent aspect of culture there. But also there's kind of a seedier side where gambling is such a major thing there. And because gambling is so directly tied to horses and the horse world, we see that a lot of people could easily be convinced to do things that are a little underhanded because of debts or their involvement in these problematic activities. And so right at the offset, they get there, they see the horse, everything is great, and then someone at the ranch dies, of course. So while there, I think one of the most prominent aspects of this that I enjoyed that has been a big progression from previous entries is that they take on the topic of the fact that this is kind of a boys club world. One of the women that they meet there, a younger woman, has really struggled to get her foot in the door and faced a lot of sexism and sexual harassment over the course of her employment there, just trying to keep her job and move up in the ranks and be successful. And she has worked hard to do it. But now she is a suspect in this murder. She's the primary suspect. And so Peg and Rose are very invested in clearing this woman's name. They really get behind her and believe in her. And I loved seeing that between these women and the way they were supporting her. So that's pretty much it as far as the plot. I think one of the things that really stood out to me in this particular book is that finally we get kind of a slower progression of the ending. That's been my main nitpick of the past 2 books in this series, is that the endings were just so sudden and kind of out of nowhere. There were lots and lots of potential suspects, as has been true across most of these books, and I was left guessing through a large part of the book. But I do feel like the ramp up felt a lot more natural in the end. So once again, it didn't blow me out of the water. It's not a new favorite or anything. These have all been in the 3-star range. I think this is on the higher end, around a 3.5 star, because of that improvement in the structure toward the end. But I did enjoy it, and so I will probably continue reading this series if it continues on. So that's the third in the Senior Sleuth series. Then, of course, I was picking that up and noticed 2 other doggy-themed books in the companion-ish series that Senior Sleuth spun off from, and these are obviously seasonal too. So first I read Halloween Murder. These are both novellas as well in the Melanie Travers series. So that series was previous to the Senior Sleuth. This is book 26 or novella 26. And obviously it is on the lead up to Halloween. We are following Melanie. She's a mom and part-time worker at Elite Academy. The secretary there has been implicated in a murder of one of her neighbors because every year she makes these incredible chocolate marshmallow treats that everyone in the neighborhood either freeze and save, and then give out on Halloween, or can't resist consuming themselves. So this man who was a neighbor ate one himself and was poisoned. So Harriet, the secretary, could not possibly have done this and had no ill intent toward this guy. So naturally, Melanie gets on the case. And there was a lot I had to overlook as far as the ridiculousness of the plot and actions. She goes out questioning all of the neighbors. So there is a very clear analog to like Halloween because she's kind of going door to door, but she's also going to collect the treats as well from all these people that have them saved, so that if they are poisoned, if somehow they got poisoned on the way out the door before reaching this guy that died, they need to get taken back. But why would the police not have done that already? That doesn't make any sense, right? But so she's kind of going to door taking candy. I get it. I get the conceptual idea there, but it was kind of ridiculous. So over the course of asking all of these questions, we definitely find out quite a lot of neighborhood drama in this one. I think this one was much more specific to neighborhood drama versus broader types of drama. And I just enjoyed it. It was a good time to read. And this one did have a very surprising, like abrupt ending, I think, for me. And one I don't think you could reasonably figure out, really. So another enjoyable mystery. Then Pumpkin Spice Puppy, also by Lauren Berenson. So this one was book 26, and this one is book 30 in the Melanie Travers series, and I think this one is the latest as well. It came out this year. Pumpkin Spice Puppy is also seasonal, but it doesn't seem to be leading up specifically to the Halloween holiday. It's more generally fall. And in the autumnally season, everyone is sort of getting ready for fall vibes. But we have Melanie headed to a dog store in this case, and when she gets there, the store owner has died already. So she naturally starts looking into everything that has gone on with his conflicts nearby, and a main source of that conflict seems to be that he was rescuing dogs at home, chow chows specifically, who are kind of big dogs, and so he was not a very good responsible rescuer, I would say, in that he loved the dogs, but he let them run loose. He let them annoy all of his neighbors. And so that was a pretty big source of conflict, that he had all of this animosity with his neighbors over his irresponsibility as a dog carer. He had kind of created a barrier with family members because of this in ways, because his house was a revolving door of dogs constantly coming and going. So he clearly did care about that, but made problems with the people in his life because of it. He also had some problems as a business owner with the neighbors in his business park, and there was just a general lot of conflict in his life. So at every level, personal, neighborhood, and professional. So that kept me guessing as to who could possibly have done it in this one. So again, we had a very abrupt ending, and I don't think you could possibly solve this one either. But I still very much enjoyed it. And I don't think there were any real prominent features of fall or dogs massively in this one. They were elements, but not hugely. It's also, both of these were novellas, and both of them are also quite false advertising in terms of the covers. Neither of these have dogs like this in them. This is probably a Chow Chow puppy, but the dog that we meet in this prominently is not a puppy, and we definitely do not have a Halloween dog in this book. So both of these were good, but very, very insubstantial. I enjoyed them for what they were. And I also think they were perfect in that they're quite deep in the series, but I in no way needed to read the previous entries. They really introduced Melanie as a character. They introduced the setup and setting, and they were very self-contained stories. So they worked just fine. Peg of the Senior Sleuth also pops up briefly in both of them, though she was not as prominent of a feature as I would have expected based on her having spun off a whole other series. She has apparently done some direct investigation alongside Melanie in the Melanie Travers series, so she's somewhere there, just not in these particular books. So I think that is all for my cozy mysteries. I did like all of these, but they probably are not going to stick in my mind for very long. But I'm glad I spent the time with them, and they were very gentle and calming. That's what I needed. So that is all for me today. Thank you so very much for watching.